Yeah, welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. We know what time it is. The game is here. But before we get to that, let's go ahead and you know what we got to do. If you haven't already, please click that subscribe, that like, and that notification bell so you can be aware when new shows come out, and you can always stay on top of us with that. If you want the audio-only version of the podcast, go over to your audio-only podcast platform, type in the Format Podcast, do a quick search. We should come up. Make sure you give us that 5-star review. Helps us out in the algorithm, helps us rise, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And finally, if you enjoy the show and you enjoy the out-of-the-box thinking and the atypical sports talk, then go ahead and recommend it to other sports fans you know might enjoy it too. All right, let's get right to it. So we've got what most people in the country would say is the biggest, nastiest, meanest rivalry in college football, and it's taking place today. Well, depending on when you're listening to this, right? But I'm recording this early Saturday morning, so it's going to take place in just, what do we got here? About 5 hours, 5.5 hours in the Horseshoe at Ohio State University. And of course, that is the Ohio State University against the Michigan Wolverines. Both teams 11-0, both teams on a collision course, and major playoff implications, major postseason implications, and always just the natural inborn hatred between the two schools and the two fan bases. Now, quick note, I live, as you know, in Florida, SEC country, so I'm sure a lot of people down here may not agree that that's the best and biggest rivalry in college football. I'm sure some people are going to say Auburn, Alabama, maybe. Some people are going to say Texas, Oklahoma, maybe, but what I've got for my money, definitely year in, year out, even when the score is lopsided, there's just something about the game, that Michigan-Ohio State thing. And quick note, SEC fans talk about how it just means more, and it does. I've talked about that, and how much they love college football. It occurs to me, SEC fans don't really love college football. They love SEC football, but that's a story for another day. Maybe I'll do a show just on that. Maybe I'll poll some people and do some interviews and stuff. But anyway, today we've got number 2 Ohio State and number 3 Michigan, and both teams, contrasting styles and just contrasting ways of play, different type of head coaches, and we've got what looks to be an amazing matchup here today. And obviously, we know that the winner of this is clearly going to go on next week and play for the Big Ten championship at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. And as I said, just major playoff implications in this matchup, with both of them being undefeated, both of them being top 4. So I did mention SEC. So of course, I got to do that. I've always talked about the SEC bias, and I just can't help but feeling if this were a situation where, let's say, LSU, who's representing the SEC West this year in the SEC championship game, if they were undefeated, and obviously Georgia's undefeated coming in, no matter who lost, both teams would make the college football playoff, because, well, we know how the committee thinks, and we know that they value the SEC above all else. And I'm just really interested in seeing who comes out on top of this Ohio State-Michigan matchup and how close the score is, because in my estimation, if Michigan wins this game close, regardless, I think if either team wins this game close, I think they both should get into the college football playoff, because as I just mentioned, if they were both SEC teams, well, they'd both get in. So I want to see how the committee handles that, and if they put their blatant hypocrisy and SEC bias on display. And if they do, which they likely will, I'd like to see how they go ahead and explain that away. I guess theoretically they don't have to explain it away, because there's no consistency on how and why they choose what they choose from week to week, furthermore year to year. So it's going to be interesting, but that if both teams don't make it, I'm going to be railing about it. So look forward to that. Now, let's get to the game itself. The game, right? We keep saying the game, but it's literally called the game because it's that huge. And again, especially this year with so many major postseason implications. So you've got the Wolverines averaging 40 points a game. You've got Ohio State with arguably the best offense in the country, averaging about 47 points a game, 46.5. Both of them are averaging over 450 yards a game. Ohio State at 492, Michigan 452. Both of them have elite defenses. Michigan only allowing about 12 points per game. Ohio State about 17. Both of them allowing less than 300 yards per game. Both of them don't commit a lot of turnovers. Michigan only 6 on the season. Ohio State only 8 on the season. They don't commit a lot of penalties. These teams are very closely matched statistically. Now, stylistically, two different things. And we know what Michigan represents. Now, Michigan won this game under Coach Harbaugh, I want to say 42-27 last year. And that was the first time in, the first time in a 10 or 12 years. I can't remember the exact number, but they won, and they won it the way they wanted to win it. They won it being physical. They won it pounding the rock. They won it punishing Ohio State on the inside. And you know that's what they're going to come in here and try to do again. They are going to try to punch Ohio State in the mouth. Ohio State's 2 losses last year, one to Oregon and the other to Michigan. Both times they were, completely physically dominated at the line of scrimmage on both ends, defensively and offensively. And we're gonna talk about that on the defensive side shortly. But Michigan wants to come in, their identity. They want to come in here and they want to pound the rock. They want to impose themselves physically on you. And ironically, for 2 fan bases and 2 schools that hate each other a lot in terms of Michigan and Notre Dame, I had to get Notre Dame in here, right? But 2 teams and fan bases that hate each other a lot, they're almost mirror images of each other. Not elite skill play on the outside, not elite quarterback play, but these are teams that are built from the trenches, defensive line, offensive line. They want to out physical you up front. They want to pound it, and that is their way of beating teams that may be more talented and more explosive offensively. Slow the game down, lean on you, wear on you, beat you, break your will by their imposing offensive lines and their ability to run the football. That is just what Michigan does, and they have built that. And that's been Jim Harbaugh's MO since he coached at Stanford. Now, obviously, we know that Harbaugh is a guy who, having been a quarterback for years, is known for developing quarterbacks. But since he's been in Michigan, this is what he's been trying to build, just this physical team. We saw it in the NFL with the 49ers, who he took to a Super Bowl and was very close to winning one. Again, we saw it at Stanford. We saw it at San Diego State. This is the type of team. Harbaugh's got that old school mentality in terms of how he likes to play football. Just that physical at the point of attack, punish you. And then when he can establish that, obviously you want to get into the play action game and go over the top a little bit. But airing it out and throwing it all over the yard, that is not his style. And that's fine, because on the other side, the Ohio State Buckeyes have a completely contrasting style. Now, no one is saying Ohio State doesn't have a very good offensive line and that they can't run the football. We saw that. Obviously, Travion Henderson, who's not 100%, he was out. And then I can't remember the backup's name, but he came in and did work. And then you had the freshman come in and do work last week for about 148 yards. So when you have a team like Ohio State, obviously they're going to have a number of talented backs. So they can run it, and if they wanted to make running their first and foremost mode of offense, then they could do that. But that's not the way they play. It's not the way they play at all. They've got a 5-star quarterback in C.J. Stroud, who you're going to hear some interesting evaluation on him in an upcoming episode I've got with a former NFL scout. So definitely look forward to that. That should be out in a few days. You've got a guy like C.J. Stroud, and he has weapons galore. He can sling it all over the yard. He's got arguably the best receiver in college football, Marvin Harrison Jr. If the name sounds familiar, that's because his father, Marvin Harrison, longtime #1 receiver for Peyton Manning and the Indianapolis Colts, is one of the greatest receivers in NFL history, and he's a Hall of Famer. Marvin Harrison Jr. is absolutely amazing. He can go down the field. He can run the route tree. He's got great hands. 65 catches, 1,000 yards, 11 touchdowns on the season coming into this game. And those numbers would be probably even more ridiculous if he didn't play with 2 other guys who were, lights out coming into college football. I think #1 wide receiver recruits in their classes. You got Julian Fleming. He's got 24 catches, 415 yards, 6 touchdowns, averaging over 17 yards a catch on the year. Monster. You got a guy like Emeka Egbuka, who's also getting busy out there. And, Ohio State is just, they are so explosive in the passing game, and that's what they want to get to. Egbuka's averaging 16 yards a catch on 57 catches on the year for 914 yards. And this is a team that wants to put it in the air. Ryan Day is an NFL coach, and he makes sure that he employs NFL passing concepts, NFL schemes, and you combine that with the talent that's around quarterback CJ Stroud, and they can do a lot of amazing things. That's why you see that they are arguably the best and probably most explosive offense in all of college football. Now, what does that mean for Michigan? That means we're going to see something different today, because last year you had on the edges for Michigan, David Ojabo and Aiden Hutchinson, both of them who are off to the NBA. I think both first-round draft picks. So you look at it now and you say, okay, where does the pressure come from? And this year, you don't have that single game record for the Wolverines, but you do have a defense overall that's not giving up a lot, and they're getting consistent pressure. So they are going to have to do that. You're going to have an unsung hero pop up in this game to make it happen. Again, you're not going to have one guy like Aiden Hutchinson. I think he had like 3 sacks last year and 15 pressures, and then Ajabo had a couple himself. So you're not going to have 2 guys just completely dominate. But with that said, this is still an outstanding team defense with the Wolverines, one that I personally didn't think was going to be this good, losing such elite talent on the edges. But you've got those guys, and they're going to come out. They're going to do their thing. Obviously, well coached. They're physical. Now, on the flip side of that, you have the Buckeye defense, which we talked about in the beginning of this thing, saying this is a team that has gotten physically manhandled a few times in their big games over the last couple of years. And you're going to watch and see. Now, they brought in Jim Knowles, former Oklahoma State defensive coordinator. He's done a very good job shoring that thing up. And you got to wonder, how is a guy like Jack Sawyer for the Buckeyes going to come in and really make it happen? Because again, for the first time in a while, you look at a team like Ohio State, they don't have a game record on the outside. They don't have a Chase Young. They don't have a Joey or a Nick Bosa to go in there and just completely take the game over, but a very good defense overall. So the key here, obviously, for Ohio State is going to be what? Stop the run. If you watch this show, or you know me, or you hear me talk football, you know what it is. Stop the run, run the ball. And that's why I think Michigan has been able to have so much success, even though they're not an elite, high-flying offensive team. They can do the basic tenets of football, and they can do it extremely well. They can stop the run, they can run the ball. Now, they haven't faced an offense like this all year, so that's going to be the real test in terms of how they can hold up on the outside, especially if they're not able to get consistent pressure on CJ Stroud. But yeah, you look at Ohio State and you say, can they stop the Michigan rushing attack? Michigan and Jim Harbaugh, they called out Ohio State last year after they beat them in the game up in Ann Arbor. They questioned their toughness, they questioned their will, and obviously, I'm sure Ryan Day had to have had that bulletin board material up there all year, all summer during the offseason workouts and all that stuff. And so I'm sure that Ohio State has made a concerted effort to get physically tougher in the trenches. I don't know that we've seen that for the most part this year. They haven't played a lot of elite competition, nor has Michigan, but I don't know if we're sure yet if Ohio State is going to be able to stand up to what Michigan is going to bring. Now, for Michigan in the running game, we know how important that is to them. Their number one guy, and an arguable Heisman contender, he's not going to win it because he's not a quarterback. And obviously a Heisman, that's just become a quarterback award now. I could do a whole thing on that. I'm not going to get into it, but their number one guy, the Michigan Wolverines, is running back Blake Corum, arguably the best running back in America. This guy's got 245 carries on the year, 1,457 yards, 18 touchdowns, 6 yards per carry. Now, this is the guy that they need to go get off. Like last year, you had Hassan Haskins. He's in the NFL now. He got off against Ohio State. You need Corum to have one of those games. And he's 1,000% capable of it. Except, here's the problem. He's coming in at less than 100%. We're not even sure, as of 16 hours ago yet, if he will play in this game. Now, he's one of those guys. He's got the will to compete, and we know what type of coach he has. And if he's healthy, I can't even say if he's healthy. If he's able to, he's going to go. But if he's at less than 100%, He is Michigan's everything on offense. It all comes off of him, not just the yards that he carries for, but his ability to set things up in the play action game so that he makes things on J.J. McCarthy and Ronnie Bell, those receivers on the outside, to be able to make some plays downfield. Because Michigan wants to be able to pound the ball, like I mentioned. They want to slow the game down and keep it away from Ohio State's explosive offense. But if they can't run it, and their best running back is at a whole lot less than what he's been all year, they are in trouble because they just don't have the horses offensively to be able to keep up with the light show that Ohio State's offense can be in. We know last week against Illinois, Blake Corum, he suffered an injury to his left knee. He went off the field, came back for a couple of plays. It was bothering him, but they did the MRI. They said there's no structural damage. Harbaugh thinks he can go. Blake Corum, of course, thinks he can go, but we're going to have to see, even if he can go. And I believe he's going to make 100% effort to do it. The question is, how healthy will he be? And on the grander scheme of things, for Blake Corum, you want him to be able to go out there and play in a game like this. He wants to go out there and play in a game like this for himself, for his teammates, for his school. But how does this possibly affect his future? I mean, he's already at a very high collision position in running back. The average NFL lifespan for a player is only about 3.5 years. I mean, career lifespan. It's only about 3.5 years. And then you tack onto that the running back position, which takes so much punishment. And so if he's already not 100%, how does this affect his future career prospects? It's a very tough situation. So we'll see. But yeah, Blake Corum, he is everything for that Michigan offense. And hopefully he's in great shape to go, not because I have a dog in this fight necessarily, but because I want to see the best possible game I can see. And the best possible game I can see has Blake Corum healthy. And if he's not healthy, I don't know how Michigan can even keep it competitive. So so many storylines, so many thoughts. And realistically, it's just the game. It is the game. And there's no other way to say it. This is the greatest rivalry in college football. These games produce so much NFL talent. These games produce a lot of just outstanding games. Michigan wants to show last year was no fluke. Ohio State wants to show that it was a fluke, that they've toughened up over the year. They didn't like Michigan's talking. They didn't like how Michigan went about winning that game last year. So this is going to be an amazing matchup, again, on the side of the college football playoff and all that stuff. I would love to see Michigan win a close one because I want to see the committee's hand forced to put two non-SEC teams into the playoff. I don't think that even if Michigan does win, that the committee is going to do it because they don't have any consistency in how they go about making their decisions. No one holds their feet to the fire. No one makes them have any type of uniform criteria on how they make their decisions, and no one makes them expose it. So it is what it is, but I'd love to see it, and I'd love to see them expose their hypocrisy and pro-SEC bias. But what I want to know from you, who wins this game? Do you have a score prediction? What do you think it's going to take for either team to win it? All right. Thanks so much for tuning in. Can't wait to come back to you next time. Make sure you click that like and subscribe, and I'm out. Peace.